fact, now it has become afternoon. A very good afternoon to all the participants of the Atal FDP. I'm thankful to Dr. Jitendra for giving me this opportunity to be a part of the workshop. Sajida ma'am is not able to hear. Is it audible, Jitendra sir? Is it audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, then okay, I'll make it a little more louder then in that case. Yes. Now is it fine?
Yes.
Now is it fine, I suppose. Now the audio is not weak. Is it low now, right now also?
At my end, it is fine. I do not know with respect to participants. At my end, your voice is clear.
Okay, because the participants are saying that it is very low. Is it fine now, Rahul Kumar? Fine. Okay. Vasudev Rao, it's fine. Okay, fine. So now it is fine. So again, I would say now it's fine. Okay. So a very good afternoon to all the participants, and I'm really thankful to Dr. Jitendra Temburne for giving me this opportunity to interact with the participants in this Atal workshop. Thank you so much. I would be talking about introduction to machine learning. So first, before understanding what is machine learning, it's more important to understand what is artificial intelligence, because machine learning is nothing but a subset of AI. AI stands for artificial intelligence. So first we will talk about what is AI, and then probably we'll move on to ML. I think there is again a Dayanand sir, you are not able to hear. Dayanand sir, are you able to hear or not? Okay,
Now is it fine? Now I think it would be fine.
Yes, now it is very much clear.
Okay, better. Okay, so we'll continue with this only. Okay, so with what is machine learning and what is AI. So first of all, I would like to talk about what is AI. So let me share the screen first of all. Okay. So AI stands for artificial intelligence. When do we say a person is intelligent? A person is intelligent when he is able to retrieve the information which has been given to him and also add more to it. So coming up with an example, there are some kids, there are 5 kids, and you teach them simple alphabets, A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, so you taught A, B, C, D, E, F to 6 people, and now you expect them to reciprocate it or come back with it the next day. Okay, so you told them to learn it, A, B, C, D, E, F, and you need to give it to me again on the second day. The next day you again ask the same alphabets, and some of the people were able to tell you A, B, C, D, E, F, and like 3 were able to tell you and 3 were not able to tell you. So what you will say, okay, 3 students are very intelligent, isn't it? So you will say that a person is intelligent if he is able to mug it up and give you the answer. Or you can say it in other ways, is whatever you have stored in the database or in its memory is retrieved at the time when you actually wanted it. Okay, so there are 3 things which goes in. You get what you actually want at the same time and in the correct format. Correct. So at which time you actually wanted it, you got the answer, and in the format which you actually wanted it. You wanted to hear A, B, C, D, E, Fs, and so you got the answer. Correct. Now, in that list of 3 students who were able to tell you A, B, C, D, E, F, there was one student who told that, okay, ma'am, A, B, C, D, E, F, and B says bat. Bat has a starting letter as B. Why was he able to do it? Because he was able to understand the phonetics of the word bat, and he said bat says B, so B says B. So very much they are similar. to each other. So probably this the bat spelling should start from B. So B for bat. Now what you will say? You will say, superb, he is very intelligent, isn't it? Because he was able to add something extra what it was not told to him. So he was able to add something extra. You told only A, B, C, D, E, F, and probably you also told the phonetics of it at A, B, B, C, D says for D, and E says for E, and so on. And the person came up, and the student came up with the thing that, okay, B for bat, by just hearing the phonetics. Now you say that it is intelligent. Clear? A small child of 3 to 4 months is able to identify the face of his parents, isn't it? So is it face recognition? Yes, it is. But did you teach him how to recognize the face? Did you write a long code for it? No. Because the people, the human beings, are intelligent naturally. Something has given to us by the God himself, like we are naturally intelligent. Clear? So we do certain things which is not told to us anyways, which has not been taught to us, and we are doing it as and when consciously and subconsciously or unconsciously. Clear? So we are doing certain things which is not taught to us, and we are doing it because we are naturally intelligent, and we want the machines also to behave in the same way. Clear? So here comes the definition of artificial intelligence. I want the machine to behave in the same way as I do. That is known as artificial intelligence. Clear? So making the machines be intelligent by inducing intelligence into them, because they are not naturally intelligent, of course, as we are. Human beings is the most intelligent animal on earth. That is why we are considered to be superior than the rest of the animals. Clear? And I want a machine also to behave in the same way as we do, as human beings do. That is known as artificial intelligence. So intelligence, so IBM, now the people started saying that if machines can behave in the same way as humans do, then what is the need of humans? Yes, if the machines can perform their tasks, then there is no point. There is no point in having the systems also do this. Okay, so we don't need humans. So IBM came up with the concept of augmented intelligence. So it said that we did not remove the humans, but we only add to what they already have, and that is known as augmented intelligence. So for example, we have a smart car. So you know how to drive a car. But when you are driving a car, then there are many possibilities of having accidents or something or some problems. So you can add intelligence to it and saying that, okay, you can know that if there is any car coming from the back or is there any car coming from the front at a very high speed. So all this can be augmented to your own intelligence. So IBM said that why not have augmented intelligence? Why not have augmented intelligence and add to the intelligence of what people already have? Clear? So to do this, actually, we need to have certain algorithms, certain protocols, certain methods to be applied onto the machine so that they can add intelligence to it. So if you see, humans are naturally intelligent, and for all the domains they are intelligent. I can give you the answers for geography, for history, for biology, for chemistry, for everything. But still as a machine, we have to go a long way to actually come up and compete with humans, because we can have a domain specific machines which are intelligent enough. So still we have narrow AI. Narrow AI means which is very, very domain specific. I can have a smart car, but the smart car cannot give you the answers of chemistry. Take. So in the same way, we have to go to a long way to have super AI which is intelligent than humans, and general AI also which is behaving like a human. But for a domain specific thing, of course, we can go ahead. So we are still in this range. We are still in this range in which we say it is artificial narrow intelligence. I can have a smart speaker, I can have a self-driving car, I can have a web search, and so on. But we have to go to a long way to actually have a machine behaving in the same way as humans do, or having more intelligence from the human beings. So if you talk about the Turing test said that I want the machine to behave in the same way humans do. So if human can answer 2 plus 2, then the machine should also, then it is a confusion that who is giving the answer. All must be knowing about the Turing test. I go one step ahead of this and say that, okay, if you ask a question of 2 plus 3, you get confused whether the answer is coming from a machine or a human being. 5, from where it is coming. But if I ask you a question like 2,30,450 multiplied by 6,452, and you get an answer. So if you are not Shakuntala Devi, then definitely this answer has come from the computer. It's not possible that a human being can give the answer. So Turing test fails, isn't it? Turing test talks about you get confused which is giving the answer, the human being or a machine. So in this case also the Turing test fails. If some complex answer is given by a machine, then definitely you can say this answer is a machine and not a human being. Correct. So if I want to make a machine behave in the same way as humans do, then it has to unlearn certain things also. I go one step ahead of this and say that Turing test. Okay. So there are many applications of AI, knowledge representation, and machine learning is one of them. So you can say that I have this as my AI, and then this as my ML, that is machine learning, a subset of AI, and I can have another subset of this as deep learning, like this. So I have artificial intelligence on the top, then a subset of it as machine learning, and then another subset of it as deep learning. Deep learning is nothing but neural network with having a lot of hidden layers, and which is actually trying to replicate a human brain in the same way as human brains do, as what human brains perform. How does a human brain looks like? So the deep learning is also that it is replicating a human brain. So we have perceptrons, we have neuron layers, and we have a lot of things. So same thing is done by the deep learning layer. Deep learning is again a subset of machine learning, and machine learning is a subset of AI, because we talked about inducing intelligence. Now we come to the concept of what is machine learning. There are certain questions which I was getting. Intelligence itself is a new thing. How can we give that? Intelligence is a new thing, but it is not abstract. Okay. So since it is not abstract, and give the machine to do it. And in fact, when I'm saying we are naturally intelligent, so we are not able to, in fact, that is the question which machine learning answers, the one which you are saying, how to give that. How to give that for you, it is abstract. But if the machine is able to do it, then it is in black and white. Okay, so I want those abstract things to be converted into black and white, and the machine is also do the same thing as you do. Okay, people, visible in the presentation mode? I think it is visible. If it is not, then let me know, because my PPTs are in the presentation mode. Visible. Okay, thank you. So now we come to machine learning, because I wanted to have you some introduction on AI, then you can understand what is machine learning is all about. So now we come to the concept of machine learning. We have understood what is AI. AI says inducing intelligence to a machine artificially. Okay. Now, while doing this, I have to make the machine learn certain concepts. I give you an example of the kids. The kids, you made them study A, B, C, D, E, F, and they were supposed to learn it. Remember? Mug it up. How to do it? Can you know how do you learn the things? Like what sir asked the question, intelligence is something new. So intelligence is not something basically. It's something abstract for you. How do you learn? How were you able to mug up the things? How you were able to learn the things? So something goes inside your brain. Something is there, and because of which it is getting learned. That is what there is another field which is known as cognitive science. So cognitive science talks about your mind, your brain, how does it actually works, what does it goes inside as conscious brains and unconscious brains and so on. correct? So if I want to have behaving the same way as human beings do, I will have to make the machine learn certain concepts as human beings are also learning every day. Okay, so let me come up with an example saying I have 2 points as A and B. Okay, and I need to take a path from A and B. Okay, so there are 3 paths for it. One, which is 5 minutes. Okay, and there is another path, A to B, which takes us somewhere around 6 minutes. Okay, and there is another path from A to B here, which takes somewhere around 4 minutes. Let's make it 4 minutes, which is less than the above one. And I took these paths on different dates because I was just trying it out. So I did this on 25th of November. I did this on 26th of November, and I did this on 27th of November. Okay? So I took a path, and let's name the paths also as X and Z. So I took a path X on 25th of November while going from A to B, and it took me 5 minutes. Similarly, I took a path Y on 26th of November, which took me 6 minutes. And again, I took a path on 27th of November, and it took me 4 minutes. Now, if I ask you, which path should I take on 2nd of December to go from A to B? What will be your answer? Of course, path Z, because it is taking less time. Okay? Yes, no? Now I add one more complex thing into this. I said that, okay, this path was meters and it took me 5 minutes. This path was 2.5 kilometers, but it took me 4 minutes. And this path was 3 kilometers. Yeah. So, is it confusing at this point of time? Yes, it is. So what can I do is I can have an Excel sheet for this. I can very well create an Excel sheet and get my data. Okay. So what I can write here is I say path, then I'll say path, time, distance, and I'll say date. These are the things which I took. So I took a X path, which took me, let's go back to the screen and see what was the, oh, I removed it. I removed the indentations. Okay, fine. So it took me somewhere around 5 minutes. The distance was 2 kilometers and the date was 26th November. Okay, I took Y path. It took me 6 minutes and the distance was 2.5 kilometers. It took me less time, no? It took me 4 minutes. And I did this on 28th of November. 28th of November. And there was another path. This was Z actually. Z. And there is another path Y, which took me somewhere around 6 minutes. And the distance was 3. And I did this on 27, like this. So if I jot this down like this, then definitely what you will say is sort it out. Okay. The first thing that I did was I sort it out and made it like this. Then I try to find out, I do the analysis of this data. I do the analysis of this data and I predict. I have to predict what should be my path for which date? For 2nd of December. What should be my path for 2nd of December? Either should I Y and Z? And as I told you, I add one more thing as distance to it. So there are 2 things that I have to consider, 2 parameters. Do I consider distance or I consider time? Clear? So if time is my major concern, time is concern, so what will I say? Okay, I'll take this path, Z path. Yeah. And if distance is my major concern, I'll take this path. Yeah. On the basis of the time, on the distance and time, I have this data. And if I want to go for a minimum distance, so I will take this. If I want to go for a minimum time, then probably I'll go for the lower one. Of course, I'm not going this Y path. This Y path is removed because it was taking more distance and more time. So what I have to choose from X and Z depending upon my desires, whether I want to have less distance or do I want to have less time. Clear? Accordingly, I can predict that value. So what actually I'm doing is I am learning from my past experiences. What was my past experience? On 26th of November, I traveled from A to B, taking a path X. It took me 5 minutes, distance 2 kilometers, and so on. Clear? So I am learning from my past experiences, and then I am trying to predict my future. What should happen on 2nd of December? This is nothing but machine learning. This is nothing but machine learning. So how we are doing it? What are the different algorithms to analyze this? That is all we are going to talk about in machine learning. So machine learning is nothing, and isn't it intelligent? Yes, it is intelligent because you are taking an intelligent decision which path to travel on 2nd of December. Should I take the path X, Y, or Z? If you're not intelligent, you will be taking the path Y. It is taking more time, it is taking more distance, but then too you will take the path Y. Clear? If you're not intelligent enough. But if you're intelligent, you will decide between X and Z. So this is nothing but machine learning. Machine learning is making you understand the things. And if you see in the previous example of Excel sheet, I had to sort it out. I had to perform certain operations, minimum, maximum, average, whatever. So data science is all about all this. This workshop is about data sciences. Clear? So data sciences is talking about the tools, the statistical tools that you can apply onto the data to come up with certain predictions, isn't it? So just create some diagram talking about this is AI, this is ML, and this is DL. So what I can do is I can have data science also like this. Data science, which may comprise of the algorithms of AI, ML, or DL, depending upon your desires, depending upon your required output. Clear? So data science is not a subset or a superset of machine learning. It is something different, but it is utilizing all the concepts of AI, ML, and DL. Why? Because the data has become very huge. In this case, I had only 3 rows. Then too, I had 2 parameters of distance and time. So there was some confusion. Now just imagine if you have 1000 parameters and you have some 2000 rows, then what is going to happen? A big confusion. So as and when the data becomes more, you need to apply certain machine learning algorithms to come up with certain predictions, conclusions, or decisions. Clear? So machine learning always deals with the output. If I have a normal program, if I have a normal C program, what will I do is I'll say int A is equal to 10. I'll say int B is equal to 30. And int C is equal to A plus B. And then finally what I'll say is C out. If it is a C++ program, I'll say C out C. Yeah. So what is this? I am taking some input and I am getting an output. What is the input? A is equal to 10 and B is equal to 30 is my input, and I am getting C as an output. Yeah. So what is the input to the system? The input to the system is the data. That is the input parameters. A is equal to 10 and B is equal to 30, and the complete program. This complete program I am giving as an input to the system. Machine learning behaves in the opposite way, and it says you give the input, you say it is 10 and 30, and I'll give you the output. What is the output? 40. Now you come up with the program and tell me that how you are going to guess the answer. How will you do that? Because I need to find out some operation here. Some operation needs to be performed so that I am getting 10 plus 30 is equal to 40. Yeah. So suppose if I say multiplication. No. If I do a subtraction, am I getting 40? No. Now I come to addition. Am I getting 40? Yes, I am getting 40. So this is my correct answer. Yeah, this is nothing but tuning my parameters. I'll come to that again. But at this point of time, you just understand that what is machine learning. So machine learning is giving the program to the system so that you are able to get the desired output. What is your desired output? 40. How to get that 40? By doing addition of two numbers which was given as input to the system. What was the two input? 10 and 30. So what should I do with this 10 and 30 to get 40? That is what we actually do in machine learning. You get data and output as the input to the system, and you have to give the program what to do, how to do to get your output. Yeah. We'll see this example later. So I told learning is learning from your past experiences, but this was in theoretical language. How to actually implement it? Because you need to implement. We are all computer science engineers, or even from a different background, but we are all engineers in which we want to have a mathematical formulation for everything. If you don't have a mathematical formulation, you won't be able to implement it actually. It is only black and white. Yes. So just to have a mathematical formulation, what we see is whatever we have to do, we say it as a task. Whatever I am supposed to do, I say it as a task, the objective. Okay. Now I am performing that task. How efficient was I to perform that task? That is performance. Was I able to do it correctly? And how to do it is my E, the experience. Yeah. Like suppose you teach your students. Okay. So the student, you are teaching data structures to the students. You taught list, stacks, queues, everything you taught them. Now the task is to learn it and then appear for the exam. Clear? So their task is to learn and appear for the exam and score good. You may or may not give the result as score good, but their task is to learn and appear for the exam. What is the performance? Performance is how much do they get? They get 80%, 90%, 100%, 20%, 30%. That is by performance. And what is experience? Experiences, I should learn it. I should study at least 1 month. Otherwise, I will not be able to clear this exam. I should not take Maggie in the night, because tomorrow definitely, then as soon as I take Maggie, I go to sleep and I'm not able to study. I'm not going to do it. This is all experience. Or I need to take a cup of coffee at 2 o'clock in the night, then only I can study for the whole night. This is all experience. And if you're talking about in terms of in the subjects, experiences, the different things that you are learning and how it was trained to you throughout. Okay, so this experience can also be like you were given video lectures every day. So these video lectures will form your experience. Okay, so performance, that's what are you supposed to do, and your experience. Let me examples for this to understand. Suppose playing chess is one of the tasks. Then how many games did you play? You played 10 games and out of which you won 8. What is your accuracy? Of course, 80%. Yeah. And what is your E? E is the rules of the game. And it may also be like, don't put horse in front of your queen, or don't put elephant in front of your king. Otherwise, you will lose. Or you should put your elephant in front of your king. You will win. Whatever. So these are certain rules. So if you want to study a game, you learn a game from an expert, Kasparov. You go to Kasparov and tell him that, okay, teach me chess. So first of all, he will teach you the rules, and then he will share his experiences. That is what experience is. Once I did this, and because of which I lost the game, like this. The other part is recognition of the faces. So recognizing the faces is my task. So I was given 100 faces, and out of which I was able to recognize 70 faces. 70% accuracy. And the database of all the faces along with the names is my experience. This I have already talked about, the driving part. So the E would be basically the maps, Google Maps, or it can be the experience that it took me 5 minutes, it took me 4 minutes, it took me 3 minutes, and so on. So let me come up with a quiz with you all. Just go through this and answer this in the chat box. I can open a poll also for you. Yes, I've opened a poll for you. What is the task T? And I say A, B, C, and D. So I've opened a poll, and the poll must be visible in your chat box. Just look into it and start doing it. I hope that poll is opened. Yes, it is there. So only 5 people have finished it. What is the task T in this? And it is an email program which watches you that which of the emails you mark as spam and which of the emails you don't mark as spam. So what is T in this? Just a minute. Sorry. You can answer it in the poll. I have just received answers from 33 people out of 145. I hope you are able to see the poll. It's there at the bottom. Forty-five people. 3 minutes remain. I'll close it in another 2 minutes. Vidyut sir, you can very well put it into the poll, whether it is A, B, C, or D.
Not able to go back to poll, ma'am.
It's there in the chat box, ma'am. If you go back, if you see there on the bottom, you will see 3 lines, 3 dots. At the bottom, you will see 3 dots. You click on that 3 dots, you will see that poll there.
Yeah.
Got it?
Option.
Vidyut ma'am, were you able to find it out?
Able to see the options A, B, C, D. Just a minute.
It's there on the 3 dots. You just click on 3 dots, the poll there. Okay, so I'm closing the poll now. So according to this, 82 people have not answered it as yet. 7 people say it was A, 21 say B, 14 say C, and 1 person say D. That's not a machine learning problem at all. Okay, let me give you the answer. It very well says that the software is watching me whether I am making an email as a spam or not, and learns how to better filter the spam. So what is it is learning? It is learning how to check whether an email is a spam or not. Yes? Learns how to better filter spam. So classifying emails as spam or not is my task. Because this of me checking, the software checking what I am doing for the emails. Accordingly, it is deciding that whether a particular email that I have received in the inbox is a spam or not. That is my task. Watching you label emails as spam or not is nothing but experience. And the number of fractions it was able to classify is P performance. Got it? P performance. Experience is, that is, it watched that, okay, there was a mail from Amazon and I'm making it as a spam. So this is experience. Okay, and there was a mail from Triple IT and domain, which I'm not making it as a spam. So this the system is watching me, and accordingly it is learning. And then it will say that, okay, this is a spam and this is not a spam. Yeah. So the answer to this question is A. Now we come to the important concept of saying that when a problem is said to be done by machine learning, when do we use machine learning? So we use machine learning in which humans can't explain their expertise. This is what I was trying to answer at that point of time when someone asked that intelligence is something new, how to give it to the user, how to give it to the machine, because we ourselves don't know how we are doing it, not sure how we are doing it. So we have to make the machine understand that. Okay, so if we cannot explain how we are doing it, then that is a machine learning problem. So humans can't explain their expert how they are doing it, but we want the machine to do it in the same way. Clear? Face recognition. How can you recognize a face? A small child who is just born 3 days or 4 days, and a 4 days child, you start saying, okay, he resembles his mother, he resembles his father. How do you do it? The eyes are similar, the nose is similar, the face is similar, something like this. But if you see, the paternal side will definitely say that the kid belongs to the father, it resembles to the father, and maternal side will say the kid resembles his mother. Definitely it will happen. So in fact, you are also not able to give the correct answer. You are also not able to do the predictions correctly, 100% accuracy. Everybody should say that, okay, he or she resembles mother, but it doesn't happen. Paternal side will always say that he looks like his father. Yes, so we don't know how we are doing it. A small child of 6 months identifies, 3 months in fact, identifies the faces of his parents. How is he doing it? We don't know. Okay, image classification. You know, this is a cat, this is a dog. Okay, and suddenly you have always seen a black cat. Okay, and then suddenly a white cat goes by. So you will start saying that white cat is a tiger? No, you will not. You will definitely say it is a cat. But how do you do that? You have never seen a white cat before. You have never seen its image. You have never talked about a white cat, but still you can identify this as a white cat. There are so many breeds of dog, and you can identify all the breeds of the dog. You can say it is a dog. How do you do this? So if you're not able to explain your expertise, how you are doing it, it is a machine learning problem. You all are teachers. You understand this too, this too, this too, all sorts of tools which the students write. How do you do it? And if you want to make a program so that the machine is able to understand these all tools together, it's a big, big, big database. And you want the machine to behave in the same way as you do machine learning. Recommendation system. I want to go to Shimla. I've never been to Shimla. What will I do? I'll ask my friend. She has been to Shimla. How is it? How to go about it? Which are the hotels which are best? So she has already been there. So she will tell, okay, you have to go to Chandigarh. From Chandigarh, you take a cab to Shimla, and it is somewhere around 70 kilometers. And in between, you will have Solan and you will have Chail and so on. Mosmi ma'am, do you have a question? Mosmi ma'am, can you please mute your mic? Thank you. So recommendation system is you are asking someone who already knows it, and then from his experiences, you are gaining your knowledge. Okay, from his experiences. He has been there, so he will be able to tell you in a better way. Clear? Recommendation systems. So, and one thing is in which the humans can't explain their expertise. And the second thing is humans don't have an expertise in this. I cannot do it. I cannot forecast sales. I cannot forecast sales. I cannot predict the downfalls in the stock market. I cannot say that tomorrow the stock market is going to be up. I would be a crorepati. I cannot do this. Then I cannot identify the risk and the anomalies. It is not possible for me. But the stock market can be predicted. There are people who are doing it, who are analyzers. You watch news 20, NDTV 24/7. It contains about the stock market, and so many people who are sitting there for as analyzers. But still, they also cannot do it 100% guaranteed. They will become crorepati. So they can also not guarantee it, but they can do the predictions. Okay, it may happen from its past experiences. 10 years back this happened, 9 years back this happened, 8 years back this happened. How they are doing it? By a simple analysis of the data. And in this way, machine learning can be helpful. So now we come up to the point, what are the different steps which are involved in solving any machine learning problem? What are the different steps involved in solving any machine learning problem? First step is defining an objective. That is the task T. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? The task T. Data gathering, that is E. Experience. In preparation of the data, I want to have the data in the format in which I actually need it, in which I am able to understand the data. If the data is not in that format, I'll have to change the format. Clear? So I have to bring the data into a format which is understood by me. In preparation of that, data exploration is visualization of the data. How is the data moving in a very statistical measures? So we take some statistical methods to actually visualize it. We can take histograms, we can take pie charts, bar charts, and so on to come up with certain visualization. How is the data moving? Then you actually train the model evaluation and prediction. Get a feel of all this. I'll discuss about a COVID data set. COVID data, Corona data set, which has certain fields. So let's get back to that. So this is a COVID.csv file. You can very well take it from Kaggle. Kaggle is a nice platform on which you can actually take a lot of data sets. Data sets are available and you can use those data sets for your own machine learning problem solving. This is quite helpful. So if you see this data set carefully, it has some fields. It talks about the province and the country, actually the province and the country, latitude and the longitude of the country, and on a particular date, what for the total number of confirmed cases, what for the total number of deaths, and what for the total number of recoveries. This is your data. So I can say, what is my task? I want to predict. The task is predict the number of COVID patients on 3rd December. This is my task. Prediction of the number of COVID patients on 3rd of December. Clear? This is my task. Now for this task, I need to have the previous data. So I went to Kaggle and downloaded this Excel sheet. This forms my second step, which is gathering the data. Now, third step involves the preparation of the data. And trust me, mark my words, 90% of the time of a machine learning expert goes in. Because applying a model is only a 5-line code. I'll show you that code as well. It's only a 5-line code. So just application of a machine learning algorithm is fairly easy. It will hardly take only 10% of your effort. 90% of your effort, or make it 80-20 at least. So 80% of your effort will go to gathering the data and preparation of the data. Because you have to get the data in such a format on which you can actually apply your machine learning algorithm onto it and come up with certain results. Okay. So if you are given this data, what will you do? What would be your first step? First step is to sort this on the country, because I'm more concerned about my country, India. So what will be my first step? First step is sorting. Okay? So I get India. After Iceland, it will be India. Yes, I get this data. So this is my data. I can do one thing is I can cut this data. I can cut this data and have another Excel sheet and paste it like this. I can do this. Yeah, so this was one step. First step was taking the data for India. What can be the next step? If you see these two columns, what are these? These are redundant. Latitude and longitude is always going to remain the same for a country. What I can do is I can delete these two columns. I don't need them. Yes. And if you see for a very long time, the 2nd of March, sorry, 3rd of Feb, data was quite 2, 3, 2, 3. And this is the time, that is 4th of March, when the data actually started changing. This is the time when the data started actually changing. I have the data only till 21st of April, I suppose. You can take the most recent data as well. So I have, this is the time when it is actually changing. So what I can do is I can delete these rows because this is not making me any changes to the analysis. In fact, some of these rows as well, because it is not going to affect my analysis at all. This is the way in which I can check how the values are increasing for recoveries or deaths and confirmed cases. Yes, no? Okay, so this is all what I did at the time of pre-processing. Pre-processing is I took the data for my country, India. Then I removed the latitudes and longitudes because it was not required, it was redundant data. And then I removed some of the rows because they were not required for my analysis. And last but not the least, I'll have to change this because this is a string format. And for any analysis, we cannot do the analysis on strings. We have to convert it to numbers. Okay? So there is a concept which is known as encoding. There are different ways how to encode that, hot encoding, and there are many other ways of doing this. So I need to encode this. And what is the easiest way of doing it? What is the easiest way of doing it? I'll insert one more row and make this as 1, this as 2. This as 3 and so on. This is the easiest way of doing it. So 21st of April is actually 52. Yes, this is nothing but preparation of the data. So do you see that how many things I have done? And now I have to analyze this. So can I just have a graph and do it? No, it is not possible because I'll have to look into so many things to understand that. What is the geography of the place? How many people are there coming from different countries or from the different states, or what is happening? What are the measures that the government are taking, etc., etc., etc. And on the basis of so many parameters, then only I can decide that how the number of patients are increasing. Or I can have a simple graph between the date and the confirmed cases. So it will be a linear regression sort of a model in which there would be, I can have a linear regression sort of a model, which can be something like this. And then I can, not linear regression, simple polynomial. And from that, I can have the prediction like on 3rd of December, this is the number of confirmed cases. Or I can go for a decision tree, or I can go for a logistic regression or whatever. Okay. So it is, but it is a linear regression. It is a regression model because values are continuous, or you can say it is a frequency. So I can go for a multinomial distribution. Multinomial distribution talks about frequency. Bernoulli's distribution talks about binary values. And Poisson distribution talks about a value. So it is not actually continuous, but it is discrete values or frequency like this. So I can go for a multinomial Gaussian multinomial distribution and apply a naive classifier. Anything. So I am trying to apply a machine learning algorithm onto this. So coming back to the same steps, these were the steps which were involved. So define the objective, data gathering and preparation of the data. I hope these 3 parts are clear now. Define the objective, what were you supposed to do? From where did you get the data, and how do you prepare the data which can be useful for your application? Clear? Thank you, Vinita ma'am. So another example is I want to define that whether a person has cancer or not. So what will be my E? This is my T, cancer prediction. This is my T. Okay, and what is my E? My E is basically the blood reports. I need to have the experience of blood reports. And on the basis of certain parameters, I'm going to decide that whether I want to go for a neural network or linear regression or SVM. For this part, I would like to tell you in very short, ML algorithms are of two types. Supervised, because as I have seen in the later part of your workshop, you will be covering all this. So I'm giving you in a very short way, supervised and unsupervised algorithms. Supervised algorithms are those in which the data is labeled, or you can also say it as annotated data. And unsupervised algorithms, the data is unlabeled. The data is unlabeled to whiteboard. Let me have a whiteboard. Okay. So I take a very simple example. A very, very simple example. Suppose I have some squares, rectangles, and I name them. I name them that this is a rectangle, this is a rectangle, this is a rectangle, and this is a rectangle. And there is another set of things, which is triangles, and I name them that this is a triangle, and this is a triangle. This is a triangle, and this is a triangle. So if now a new shape comes in, then I will compare this shape with a rectangle and say, okay, is it matching? Because rectangle, what are the features of rectangles? What are the different properties? It has 4 sides, purple in color. And what are the features of this? It has 3 sides and blue in color. So I'll compare it with this, and then I will compare it with this, and I'll find out the comparison. If the comparison is greater than the threshold, then I'll say, okay, it belongs to this set. Nothing but a class. This is known as a class. These two are a class. So I'll say this triangle belongs to, not to this, but it too belongs to this. So I'll put this inside this. Yeah, this is nothing but classification, in which I have a labeled data. What was a labeled data? Because it was telling you that it is a rectangle, it is a triangle. So giving you a labeled data. Now again, I have the same sort of a problem in which these are rectangles, and I have these triangles. But I'm not telling you that this is a rectangle or this is a triangle. I have not told you anything. What will it happen? Again, the feature matching would be there. Again, I have received I have received this shape. So what it will do, it will try to compare it with this. It will try to compare it with this, and it will try to compare it with this. So it will find out the features. It'll say that, okay, it has 4 lines blue in color. This also has 4 line blue in colors, 4 line blue in colors. Let's put it inside one box and name it as A, because I don't know it is a rectangle, and name it as A. This has 3 lines, red in color, very, very bold. So I make them as B. Features would be there, feature extraction there, matching this belongs to this, so why not have this to be stored here? But again, I have not told what it is. I have just told that this is B and this is A. There are different. This is nothing but a cluster, clustering. So in the sense, if I have a labeled data, then it is known as classification. If it has unlabeled data, it is known as clustering. Yeah, easy to understand. So if it is a labeled data, I will apply any supervised technique. If it is unlabeled data, I will apply any unsupervised technique. Easy to understand? Yes? Okay. So continuing with the presentation.
Hello, madam. Could you please repeat?
Repeat what?
Yeah, repeat.
The feature extraction?
Yes. No, not exactly. How do we classify exactly into the supervised, unsupervised, clustering, classification? The good points, what you said at the end.
Okay, I'll repeat it again. So what happens is you have a labeled data in which you have been mentioned that this is a rectangle and this is a triangle. So this is labeling. The labeling has been done. And in this case, the labeling is not there. So you don't know that what are these. Feature extraction will happen in both the cases. In this case also, I'll say, okay, these are 4 lines and this is purple in color. This has 3 lines and 2 in color. This is known as a triangle set. This is known as a triangle set because I know that these are triangles. And this would be a rectangle set and we call it as classes. So I'd say this is a rectangle class and this is a triangle class. Yeah, because we know that these are rectangles and these are triangles. So whenever a new shape, suppose there is a new shape comes in. So I'll compare it with this and this, both classes, and I'll say it matches more with this, so why not put it inside this? Matches more. This also has 4 lines. This also has purple in color. So you can do matching in lots of ways. There are different ways, Euclidean distance finding out, or doing the cosine similarity. There are various ways by which you compare the two shapes. And if it is greater than the threshold, for this, suppose the value was 30. For this, the value was 30. Just a minute. Okay. And for this, the value was 30, and for this, the value was 10. So the value is more, so I put it inside this class. Simple. And in this case, what happens? The same thing. I have this structure. So in this case, suppose if the color is different, so it neither belongs to this nor it belongs to this. So this will be placed in another class altogether. Another class. So that is why it is known as clustering. In case of clustering, number of sets is not known before. But in the case of classification, we already know what are the number of sets because we know the labels. Since we know the labels, there can be another label which is a circle. So I can have another labeled as circle, and I can have another set, or you can say it as a class, which is known as circle. But in this case, it is unlabeled data, so we don't know what is going to come. It may happen that I get a triangle, I get 3 lines with purple color, which is neither matching with this nor with this. I'll put it inside another set. And this will be known as cluster C. Okay. And if I get a similar structure, like this, so then I will do the comparison with this. I'll do the comparison with this. I'll do the comparison with this. I'll do the comparison with this. So I'll see that, okay, this is matching best with this. So I'll put this inside this. Yeah. Who asked the question? Is it clear now? Ravikant sir, I think I have answered your question now. Because you don't tell how many classes are to be going to happen in the case of clustering. Number of clusters is not fixed. As and when the data comes in, a new cluster is formed. That is what I told in this case. It was a purple color, so we put it into a different set altogether. But in the case of classes, we know the labels. Since we know the labels, so we know the number of classes. So classification and clustering, this is the biggest reason. Classification is a supervised learning technique. Clustering is an unsupervised learning technique. Classification is a supervised learning technique. In classification, we know the number of classes beforehand. In clustering, we don't know the number of classes beforehand, or we say number of clusters beforehand. As and when the data comes in, if it matches with the existing ones, we'll put it there. If not, we'll put it differently. Correct? I hope it is clear now. Ravikant sir and the ma'am who asked the question.
Yes, ma'am, it's clear.
Okay, thank you. Returning back to the slides. So we have now here, I know that you now decide, since you have gathered the data, so you know it is labeled or unlabeled, and accordingly you can decide which algorithm to apply, which set of algorithms to apply. Do you need to apply supervised algorithm techniques, or do you want to apply unsupervised learning techniques? Because you cannot decide the algorithm at this point of time. There can be 10 algorithms in supervised learning, and you may get different answers for them. And so you apply all those algorithms onto the data set, the one which gives you the best results would be chosen. Now, next we have, this is what I was talking about, preparation of the data. You remove the missing values, you remove the redundant values, and you remove the duplicate values. Now, missing values is, since I made that Excel sheet, you remember I made that Excel sheet? This one, not the COVID one. Here. This Excel sheet. Suppose in this case, I don't know the distance. Suppose I don't know the time, or I don't know the date. Suppose I don't know the date. So if suppose this is missing, so I can assume that, okay, this was on 28th of November, or I can assume it was 25th of November, something like that. So I have to take care of the missing values also. So missing values, redundant values, duplicate values, all these are taken care of at the time of preparation of the data. Exploratory data analysis is a different field altogether, in which you actually check that how the data is changing. What is the pattern the data is following? So it is finding out the hidden patterns of the data. So this step basically employs the data science techniques, the statistical tools, to find out the trend in the data. Okay. And then we come to actually training a machine learning model. This is the one which I was talking about, hyper tuning the parameters. I told you I'll come back again to this. I had two data and 30, and I told you what should be the output. Right? So I checked on different operations. I checked on multiplication, I checked on minus, I checked on division. And finally, I can come with plus. Or I could have come plus to the first instance, and I could have got the answer at the first instance itself. Or I could go on checking for the different operators, and then I said, okay, with plus sign, I'm getting the answer. So the answer to this question should be addition. With addition, I'm going to get the correct output, the desired output. This is nothing but fine tuning your parameters. Whatever parameters you have, you change them in order to get your correct. If you see the example which is next to this, interviewer asks you, what is your biggest strength? And the person says, I am expert in machine learning. Interviewer asks, what is 9 plus 10? He says it is 3. So he says, no, it is not even close to 3. It is 19. So he says, now he finds out the loss. What is the difference in the loss? 19 and 3. The loss was 16. So he tried to improve his 3, make it close to 19. So he said, is it a 16? So he said, no, it is not 16. He'll again move forward and say it is 18. Say, no, it is not 18. He'll again move forward and come to 19. So this was a very layman example. So that is why it came to 19. But actually what happens, it always comes to 18.999999. It can never give you 100% accuracy. We are talking about probability, and probability is never 100%. In real world scenarios, you never be sure of, you can never be sure that tomorrow is going to rain. You can never be sure of that tomorrow the market is going to fall down, or the stock price of Infosys is going to go up. You cannot predict. Nobody knew that Satyam is going to fall like this from 300 to it will come to 30 rupees. Nobody knew about it. So there are things which nobody can predict. So that is why it's always 18.9999. It is never 19, because you can never get the correct, absolutely correct answers with 100% accuracies. Okay. So this is a point which I wanted to discuss, that is a training data, testing data, training, testing, and validation. There are three things which needs to be studied. What is training, what is testing, and what is validation? Thank you so much, Seville sir. Okay. Now I'm going to give you another good example for this. How to understand training, testing, and validation. I want to make, I'm expecting guests day after tomorrow. Okay? I want to make paneer butter masala and I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to make paneer butter masala. In the short form, it is generally called as PBM. Paneer butter masala, PBM. I don't know how to make PBM. And I'm expecting my guests the day after tomorrow. So what will I do? I'll train myself from YouTube. I'll see a YouTube video and train myself. Okay? So I went to YouTube. I saw the video by Tarla Dalal and learned how to make PBM. This is my training. Now I want to actually make it. Okay? So what will I do is training what? That you need onion. If you are a Jain, then you don't need onion, tomato, and jeera, dhania, haldi, different spices. You need all those spices, and you need coriander for it, and you need paneer for it, basically, and you need cashews, etc., etc. So this was all done at the time of training, and these were the parameters which were discussed. And whenever you are having the tomatoes, then don't overcook it, or you don't have cashews at the front, at the last. This was all done at the time of training. The experiences were also shared with me that you should not have cashews in the beginning, you should have cashews at the last, etc., etc. And I tried today. I made it in the dinner for my clear. So when my son ate it, he said, Mama, the salt is little less. The salt is little less. So add more salt to it. Clear? So what will I do is I'll add more salt to it. Then my husband says, okay, it's fine. It's good. So I give you, it's fine. I give you 100% accuracy on this. And the son said, add more salt to it. I added more salt to it. And now both were very happy with it. And I got 100% accuracy. This is known as training accuracy. And adding of salt was actually fine-tuning your parameters. Clear? And this complete process is known as validation. Remember it very carefully. This is not testing. This is validation. Testing is day after tomorrow when my guests are going to come. When my guests are going to come, I'll again make PBM and then I will give it to with extra salt because my son told me that to have extra salt. With extra salt, I again made PBM. I made it for the guests and the guests said it is wonderful. It is very good. They gave me 100% accuracy. This is known as testing accuracy. Generally you get a very good training accuracy and generally we don't get 100% accuracy in testing because the tastes are different. It may happen that the guest said, no, you added salt, which was not required. The previous salt was fine. It may happen. Yes. So training, validation and testing. But in layman terms, we combine this validation and testing and we say it is testing. Because your son also tested it and tasted it. So the son also did the tasting. Yeah, testing. Okay. So in that case also testing is done. So we say training and testing. Whatever data you have, going back to the COVID data now, the actual implementation, this was an example of. So if this is my data, so what will I do? Suppose it has 52 rows. So for these 52 rows, I will take approximately 80% of the rows. So we go for 80% for training and 20% for testing. This is by default the rule. You can change it to 70-30, 90-10 also. So 80% of the rows I'll take for training, 20% I'll go for validation, and I'll take one more row here for 3rd of December. And its date would be somewhere around 90, suppose. And then I will try to predict these three values. This is nothing but testing. This is nothing but testing. I can have it for 3rd December also, and I can have it for 12th December also. Because 3rd December is prediction. I don't know what is going to happen on 3rd December. So that is prediction, future. But I can check it for 1st December. So this is my testing accuracy. I can check it for 1st December and find out, okay, I said the number of cases would be 1,32,400 and this would be my number of confirmed cases. But my actual number of confirmed cases was this. So what is my loss? This subtracted by this is my loss. Loss means actual minus predicted. So this was my actual, this was my actual, and this was my predicted. So what is my loss basically? My loss is nothing but actual minus predicted. So we generally, since loss, it can be negative also and can positive also. So we take always the root mean square of the loss. Root mean square of the loss, or we take it the square of this loss. We generally talk about in terms of squares because it can be negative also. And I'm giving you a question for thought, a food for thought. Why don't we take a mod? Mod is also the same thing. It will remove the sign. So why don't we take a mod instead of square? That is a food for thought for you. Think over, and you can search on Google, you will get the answer. So why don't we take a mod? Why do we always take a root mean square? Mod is not complicated. No. Complication is not the answer for this. There is a technical fixed answer. Okay, think over. So we always take a square of this loss and we try to minimize this loss, and that is known as optimization. A very good example for optimization is gradient descent. Gradient descent for optimization. So what I want to have is decrease my loss as much as possible. So what I can have is, I can say, okay, this is my prediction and this was my actual. So this is quite close now. This is quite close. This was 132. So I'll try to improve it. I'll make this, then I'll make 3.7, then I will make it 3.8, and then I finally can come to this number. That is what I was doing in example. 3 plus 16 was 19. That is what I was doing. I was trying to reduce my loss, the prediction minus actual. Here also I'm doing the same thing. I want to have my loss as small as possible, and this I can do it with optimization. Or you can say it as a fine tuning my hyperparameters. Another food for thought. What is the difference between hyperparameter and parameter? Think over. Okay. So this is training the machine model. That is what I told you about. What is training, what is validation, and what is testing. How you are actually training the system with some data, and then on the basis of that you are validating it, and then you are doing the testing on a new data. And sometimes it happens you don't have the new data. So whatever rows you have, you divide it into 3 parts: 70, 20, 10. So 70% will go for training, 20% will go for test validation, and 10% will go for testing. Clear? You do this training and testing, assuming that you have some more data on which you can test your model. Clear? Model evaluation and optimization is what I was talking about. There are various ways. Mod can be negative. No. Mod is used to convert a negative number to a positive number. So whatever number you are taking as negative or positive would be converted to positive. Confusion matrix, there is one way of doing the evaluation. And then once you have evaluated it, that is, you have found out what is the loss, and then you can optimize it. I'm not going into the detail of confusion matrix because then my time will go off. One thing I wanted to discuss is about overfitting and underfitting. When you are trying to train the model a lot, like suppose I made PBM and my son said add more salt to it. Then my husband said no, it is fine. I'll get confused. Then I'll say, okay, you people are just saying that. I'll call my neighbor and I ask her, what is this? Should I add more salt to it? She says, add more salt to it. I added to it. Then there was another neighbor and said, okay, add more some turmeric to it. Turmeric was added. Then there was some another neighbor who said, add some coriander to it. What is going to happen with my PBM? It will become tasteless, useless. So that's why Overfitting of the model is bad. Overfitting means you train so much that it becomes bad. It becomes confused. Clear? So in that case, overfitting is also bad and underfitting is also bad. Underfitting is the sense that I am making it in my own way. I don't care what you say. You don't, if you say even if the salt is less, I'm not going to add it. That is underfitting. So high underfitting and high overfitting is always bad. And this is done with the help of two parameters which are quite important, which is known as bias and variance. Bias and variance. So in this region, you have high bias and low variance. And in this region, you have high variance and low bias. And in this region, this is the optimal region. This is the optimal region in which you have low bias and low variance. So this is actually the way it should be. This is the one which you actually desire. Low bias and low variance. Variance is how your predicted values are scattered from each other. That is variance. And bias is what is the difference between the actual and the actual and the predicted, and how you are going to modify it. Right? Suppose if I want to have a bias, I can go it like this. This is minimum bias, very, very high bias and minimum variance. Minimum variance because it is not varying at all. It is not scattered at all and has very, very high bias for x. Suppose y is equal to 3. You give me the value of x, y will always be 3. This is an extreme condition of linear regression. Linear regression is a supervised learning technique for regression. In this case, whatever you give the value of x, y will always remain the same as is equal to. So it's an extreme case of very, very, very high bias and very, 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 very low variance. And very, very, very high bias, because I'm biased for this condition, y is equal to 3. Whatever you give the value of x, y will always remain as 3. So we always strive to get this region, which is low variance and low bias. Itna bhi zyada train mat kar do, and do not train it at all. You have a middle path. Okay, I will listen to my son and I'll add more, I'll add a little salt to it and nothing else apart from that. Okay. So that is confusion matrix. I'm skipping at this point of time. It talks about the precision and the recall. In a very, very short sense, true positive is whatever is the prediction, it is correct. Suppose the prediction is the patient has cancer. This is positive. So if the patient has cancer and I'm predicting it has cancer, this is true positive. The patient doesn't have cancer and I'm predicting it doesn't have cancer, this is negative. And what is false negative? False negative is false means that is I am doing it wrong. And negative means I'm saying the person doesn't have cancer. So when it will be wrong? When the person has cancer and I say he doesn't have cancer. This is false negative. And false positive, the person didn't have cancer and I said he has cancer. This is false positives. So we want to avoid false positives and false negatives, and I have to get true positives and true negatives. So if you talk about precision, precision is correct predictions plus false positives is how many times did I say the person has cancer? Sometimes it was correct and sometimes it was not correct. How many times the total number of persons for whom the predictions was he had cancer. And recall is correct predictions upon total number of the people having cancer. Some of them were correct predictions, some of them were wrong predictions. Clear? True positives, correct predictions upon precision is total number of people whom were predicted as cancer. Some were right, some were wrong. And recall is total number of actually people having cancer. Some of them were correctly predicted, some of them were wrongly predicted. Validation and testing I have already done. Now this is the predictions. On the basis of your training, of your optimization, you will predict. Testing part actually. And then finally, ML in a nutshell is, ML is nothing but a hypothesis. Hypothesis in the sense, you were talking about that COVID data set. So you form one strategy that, okay, the cases are going on to increase like this, or it is following this path or something like that. So you form a hypothesis. And on the basis of the hypothesis, you predict something. You predict something, you do the evaluations, you do the optimizations, and then you finally come up with the actual test. Clear? So that is the end. And now I would love to have your questions. There were some questions which were asked in the middle also. Let me first answer them. Okay. Yes, what can be negatives that I have already answered. What is the minimum number of samples required to choose machine learning model? There is never a good number. The more you have, the better it is. There is never a number. Thank you, Selvi ma'am. I think it is better as much as you have. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Sumati ma'am. What is complicated? No, what is not complicated? It is not negative. X2 is differentiable function of X, but X mod is not. That means you can write down a formula for the least squares regression coefficients, but computing the least absolute deviation line for a large data set requires some serious computing power. I think Gautam sir, you have copy pasted it from the net. So you have already understood it. No point in telling you, but in layman terms, if you take a square, then the outliers are taken care of. Because if the distance from the outlier to the predicted value is suppose a little bit, then if you take a square, it will become quite large. So outliers are not counted in. So generally we take a square so that the outliers are taken care of. In very short, I have explained. The differentiable function is a gradient descent you are explaining, ma'am. Yes, you can talk about that, but gradient descent is basically how the loss function is changing. So you find out the slope of the loss function every time, and that slope should be negative. At the point when it start becoming positive, is this your local minima? Okay. Can we say without validation is underfitting? No. Underfitting is something different. Underfitting is you are not trying to change your values. You are not evaluating it. You are not optimizing it. In overfitting, there must be low variance. No, it is high variance. Overfitting is low bias, high variance. Yeah, easy to understand. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, Kyle sir. Thank you so much. Excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for praising it. Validation is a part of training or testing. Ma'am, Jaya Pal, sir or ma'am, I'm not sure, sorry. So validation, it's neither a part of training nor a part of testing. It's something different, but you can call it in the form of testing because it also involves a sort of testing and then evaluating and optimizing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shivu sir. Thank you, Maria ma'am, Vijay sir, Sumati ma'am. Thank you so much for everyone for praising it. I hope you were able to get at least 80% of what I discussed today. So I was able to give you an introduction to machine learning. I was also able to discuss a data set with you. Just give me 1 minute. I can show you the results also for that program, which I was talking about. Generally, we do everything on Colab. Colab is a platform which is given by Google. It's a cloud platform, and on which you can actually run your machine learning programs. So this, I told you that first of all we have to take the country region. So this is the command which is used to have only India as the country, and the rest of the countries would be removed. Then the second thing was I wanted to have some of the columns. So this is the way in which we get some of the columns only and not all.
Ma'am, your screen.
Oh, so sorry. Oh, so sorry. I am sharing the screen. Okay, I again go back. This is the code which is used for the COVID dataset which I was talking about. The first thing that we did was we are taking the data only for the country India. So this is the way we do it. We take it only for country India. This is the first step that we did in Excel sheet, remember? So we are taking it only for the country India. Then we talked about some of the columns. So these are some of the columns. We talk about country, confirmed deaths and recoveries. and date is also there. So I'll take it another way, in this way. Okay, so this is how we take it only for some of the columns. And then I talked about some of the rows. So this is the way how we take it for some of the rows. Okay, and then we actually do the encoding part, which I told you. That is, the strings are converted to numbers. This is the code for that. Strings to numbers. Okay, so now it has been converted to numbers. So if you see, this is the date part which has now been converted to numbers. So this is all the pre-processing that you do, and at the last you can get the plots like this. You can get the plots like this, in which you are predicting the values. This is the way how you are saying the number of cases would be on so and so dates. Or like you can have another test. This is a linear regression model. You can have any other model, like this is a decision tree model which can be there, and accordingly you can get the answers. That is why I told it's only a 5-line code, only a 5-line code applying the ML algorithm. Probably you will see the hands-on in the subsequent sessions in which it will be discussed in detail. I have just talked about a little bit of the coding part, very little. Just wanted to show that how it is done. So whatever I was discussing is actually implementable, and it can be very well implemented. Abdul sir, sorry, I won't be able to share the IPYNB file at this point of time, because this is the one within which I'm doing the research right now. In the due course of time in the workshop, you will be discussed about the Python and its libraries, and you would be discussed about all that. I'll definitely share the PPT. Yeah, I'll share the PPT. I just wanted to show you the code in the sense that whatever I was speaking throughout, it's actually implementable, and you can implement it. In the workshop itself, you will get those codes. Don't worry. Thank you so much once again.
So thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful session.
Thank you, Jitendra sir.
So,
Ma'am, any book for machine learning?
Indra ma'am, there is a book on machine learning by Tom Mitchell. Tom Mitchell is a book, but for the elementary part, you can just go on to Google and search for the things. Tom Mitchell is a little higher level book. So once you are aware of what is machine learning is all about, then you can go for Tom Mitchell for mathematical formulations. That is a standard book.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Shaukat sir.
Ma'am, actually, I would like to know if one wants to study machine learning and data science, usually, and AI, and they will be clubbed, basics will be the same. So what is the best way to approach, ma'am, how to learn, get started from basics, and just to, whether it is one should study books or one should study some tutorials or should take some course or like that?
You are taking a course for data science. This is more than sufficient. Don't worry. So by the end of this course, you would be quite familiar with what is data science, what is machine learning, what is deep learning. You'll be having sessions for all. And probably you have already attended a session on maths also, on linear algebra and all.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
This is talking about data sciences. And today I talked about machine learning. So we have given you an introduction. This workshop is the first step of you understanding what is machine learning, what is data sciences, what is neural networks, and so on. And then you can proceed on any of the topics which you think. Like if you want to concentrate more on machine learning, then you can study those topics of supervised and unsupervised learnings. And then
yeah, ma'am. Yeah, what I was asking was that if we want to go further to study this thing, artificial intelligence or machine learning, data science, so do we need to study it from the books, or do we go for a particular course, online course like Coursera, Udemy, or like that? Or
being a faculty, and if you ask me, best ways to study from books. Best is to study from books. If you're not able to understand a topic, then you can check for the YouTube videos. Andrew Ng is a fellow of Stanford University. He's a big professor, and he has given a lot of videos on machine learning.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank
Lakshmi
you.
ma'am, yes. Thank you.
Ma'am?
Yes, Lakshmi ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. How to implement in process industry this concept, ML?
How to implement?
in ML in process industries, some process variables like temperature, pressure. If we want to model any parameters, means how to implement. So how to study?
You have to take the parameters from the sensors.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So that is the application of IoT on machine learning. Okay? So what you do is actually, Internet of Things. So what you do is you take the data from the sensors,
Yes, ma'am.
and then you put it onto a machine. Taking the data from the sensors, putting onto a machine, applying the machine learning techniques onto this, and the analysis of that data, like how the temperature is moving, how the humidity is moving, all the different parameters from which you have which are the sensed.
Is there any tool to apply the machine learning to see the characteristics curve?
Tool is you have to write a code on your own. You can take it from GitHub. GitHub has lots of, I'm just writing that name here. GitHub is lots of codes. You can take the code from there and then you can reform it for your own self. But the coding is the only way in which you can check the data, do the analysis onto the data.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other question? 578345025. Please give your name. And Tom Mitchell is yes, theoretical. And for the practices, the more you practice, the more it is better for you. So just start writing codes for ML. That is the only way to practice. Any other question?
Okay, so thank you, ma'am, and thank you, participants. So I request participant to join for the next session, which will going to start at 2:30. So at this point, I give thanks to madam and all participants. Closing
Thank you
this
so much.
meeting if there are no questions.
Sir, I have one query. So about the attendance link, sir, would it be at the end session or in between, sir?
Why you are asking this question?
So it's not a question. Actually, I was asking whether the attendance link is not provided in the morning session and now also. So that's why I was asking, sir.
Yesterday pattern we are following. Yesterday I have shared in the afternoon. So
Okay,
from
so in the afternoon only it will
sharing
be
that session
available.
only.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Otherwise, I'll float in every session. Time it will be very difficult to manage the 80% if you are having some engagements. Okay, so thanks to everyone.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you,